All right, we got to talk about the January 6th pipe bomb situation because it's a story that I feel like isn't getting enough attention, at least the attention that it deserves. And the reason I feel it's so important is because what it implies. It implies that the entire January 6th event, which many of us already believe was a orchestrated deep state event, it implies that the intelligence agencies were willing to go so far that they would actually plant pipe bombs at the January 6th event in order to achieve their objectives. What exactly those objectives are, that's something that could still be debated. But the evidence suggests that it was actually an orchestrated event by the FBI, the Capitol Police, the CIA. And I mean, we already know that the FBI was entrenched in the crowd that day. There were agent provocateurs that were paid to rile up the crowd. The Nancy Pelosi involvement in the entire situation and denying the National Guard for sort of backup. Well, if we go back and we look at it, we found out that on January 5th, the night before January 6th, 2 pipe bombs were planted. A lot of people aren't even aware that 2 pipe bombs were planted, but one was planted outside the RNC and one was planted outside the DNC. And they were later one was found by a woman going to the laundromat, and another was, I believe, found by Capitol Police or ATF later on that day. And it seems that the story, which should have been, the biggest part of January 6th, the fact that there were pipe bombs there, it sort of felt like it was trying to be buried. You didn't hear too much about it. And I mean, 5 years went by before anything happened. And you would think one of the most surveilled places on Earth, it would be easy to figure out who planted these pipe bombs. But for some reason, it was sort of radio silence on it. But people like Thomas Massie were blowing the whistle the entire time. Who planted the pipe bombs was sort of a reoccurring question for 5 years. And then in November of 2025, almost 5 years later, The Blaze, Steve Baker from The Blaze, comes out with a story saying that they believe they figured out who planted the pipe bomb on January 6th. And they believe it was a former Capitol Police officer named Shauni Kerkhoff, who now works for the CIA. And the way they determined that was using gait analysis, the way somebody walks. And the reason, and that sounded weird to me in the beginning, but then you realize that no, whoever planted this pipe bomb does walk in a very weird way. They have sort of a limp. And it would be pretty easy to compare the way that person walks to the way somebody else walks. And they use these gait analysis tools using AI and algorithms and what have you. And they determined with a 96% certainty that it was this Capitol Police officer named Shauni Kerkhoff that planted these pipe bombs. Well, about a month later, Kash Patel comes out and says, we caught him. We caught him, guys. So nothing for 5 years, nothing from the FBI about who planted the pipe bomb. And then The Blaze comes out with this article and they're like, we actually think the Capitol Police did it. And that person that did it, that worked with the Capitol Police, now works for the CIA. So after this article comes out, a month later, the FBI scrambles to, find the suspect. And I guess they've been working on it this whole time. This whole time, you guys, they've been tracking this guy down and doing their due diligence, and they finally got him. It just happens to be a month after this article comes out implicating the Capitol Police. So that seems like weird timing. And then Shauni Kerkhoff, shortly after Kash Patel comes out and says that we got the guy, Brian, what's his name? Brian Cole Jr. Shortly after The Blaze comes out with the article implicating Shauni Kerkhoff, they indicted Brian Cole Jr., an autistic 30-year-old man who works at a bail bonds place, who likes My Little Ponies and Crocs, and he likes walking his dog, and he never talks to anybody, and he avoids eye contact. And that's the guy. Apparently, that's what they said. So The Blaze was forced to retract their article, and Steve Baker no longer worked for The Blaze, and he's not retracting his story at all. So The Blaze retracted the story, but Steve Baker is sticking to his guns. So I have a whole bunch of stuff pulled up here we're just going to talk about everything we know about the J6 pipe bomber. But I mean, that's sort of the overview of the story. So we'll start with just a quick grok overview of the pipe bomb situation. So this is what grok says. On January 6, 2021, 2 pipe bombs were discovered in Washington, D.C., one near the Republican National Committee headquarters and one near the Democratic National Committee headquarters. The RNC bomb, first discovered around 12:42 or 12:45 p.m., a civilian woman found the device in a shared alleyway next to the RNC building while heading to her apartment building's laundry room. She alerted RNC security, which contacted law enforcement, U.S. Capitol Police, FBI agents, and ATF personnel responded. DNC bomb, roughly 30 minutes later, around 1:05 or 1:07 p.m., a second pipe bomb was found under a bush next to a park bench outside the DNC headquarters. This occurred while law enforcement was still responding to the RNC scene. U.S. Capitol Police, counter surveillance agents, or responding officers were involved in the discovery. Vice President-elect Kamala Harris was inside the DNC at the time and was evacuated shortly after around 1:14 p.m. Both devices were viable improvised explosive devices, which isn't really a term. They don't use when you're talking about explosives, they don't use the term viable explosive devices, but they did in this case. They were galvanized steel pipes filled with homemade black powder and kitchen timers. They weren't filled with a kitchen timer, I don't believe it. Anyway, but did not detonate. U.S. Capitol Police bomb squad rendered them safe later that afternoon. RNC device around 1:58 to 3:33 p.m., DNC around 4:36 p.m. The bombs had actually been placed the evening before on January 6th between approximately 7:30 p.m. and 8:30 p.m. FBI released surveillance video, which shows the suspect wearing a gray hooded sweater, face mask, glasses, gloves, and distinctive black and gray Nike Air Max turf shoes with a yellow logo, carrying a backpack. Walking the route, pausing at the DNC bench at around 7:52 or 7:54 p.m. to place one device, and near the RNC alley around 8:14 p.m. for the second. The investigation timeline. The FBI, ATF, U.S. Capitol Police, and D.C. Metropolitan Police led the probe, which remained unsolved for nearly 5 years despite significant early effort. 5 years. Just a month after the article from the Blaze comes out, but, that's timing means nothing, I'm sure. In 2021, in the initial phase, hundreds of interviews, review of 23,000 video files, and analysis of physical evidence, bomb components. Multiple persons of interest were identified early, including someone who searched Pipe Bomb DC online post-placement, a person who photographed the RNC alley on the morning of January 5th, and a vehicle matching the suspect's description. FBI released video, route map, and photos in September of 2021, seeking tips. Initial reward was $100,000, later raised to $500,000. In 2022 through 2024, the case went cold publicly. Periodic updates, but no arrests or major breaks announcements. The FBI continued analyzing tips, digital evidence, and physical components. In 2025, renewed focus. As of early 2025, January House Administration Committee report, the FBI still had not identified a suspect or arrest. The $500,000 reward remained active into October of 2025 with renewed public appeals. November 8th, 2025, Blaze Media published an article by Steve Baker and Joseph Hanneman claiming a former U.S. Capitol Police officer, Shauni Kerkhoff, was a forensic match with a 94 to 98% via Gait analysis. For the suspect, this fueled conspiracy theories of law enforcement involvement. December 4th, 2025, a month later, FBI arrests Brian Cole Jr., then 30, of Woodbridge, Virginia. He was charged with transporting an explosive device in interstate commerce and attempted malicious destruction by fire and explosive. Cole confessed to assembling the plant and planting the devices, so they got the autistic guy that likes My Little Ponies to confess. Evidence included credit card purchases of bomb components, cell phone tower data, license plate readers, and matching items found in the home. Prosecutors described overwhelming evidence. The Blaze retracted its earlier article the next day on December 5th. Post-arrest, in late 2025 through 2026, additional charges were filed against Cole in April of 2026, just recently, including attempting to use weapons of mass destruction and committing an act of terrorism while armed, potentially carrying life in prison. So they're trying to put this guy away for the rest of his life. He has pleaded not guilty to new court counts, but he confessed. Why is he pleading not guilty? The case remains ongoing. Regarding the Steve Baker article published on November 8th, 2025, that implicated the Capitol police officer, it took the FBI 26 days to charge and arrest the suspect now facing charges, Brian Cole Jr., arrested and charged on December 25th. So 26 days after Steve Baker publishes the article saying, yeah, we're pretty sure that this Capitol police officer planted these pipe bombs. Like, nope, this autistic kid named Brian Cole planted them. 26 days after the article was written. Note, the officer named in the article was later cleared. She was cleared, you guys. We'll see how cleared she is. Cleared, she filed a defamation lawsuit against Baker, which we'll get into, Blaze Media, and others in 2026. Cole's arrest and confessions resolved the case per federal authorities. So the Fed said it's resolved. It's got, she's clear of all charges. She's clear. She's got an alibi, which is a picture of a dog. The summary is based on official FBI statements, court filings, congressional reports, and contemporaneous new accounts. The investigation was long and complex, involving extensive surveillance review, but culminated in an arrest under the Trump administration's DOJ and FBI leadership in late 2025. All right, sounds pretty clear, cut, and dry, doesn't it? No, it doesn't to me either. So let's look at some of this footage that of the night of the person dropping off the pipe bombs, because, you know, it sounds kind of weird. They determined that this person, Steve Baker used Gait analysis. Well, what is Gait analysis? That seems a little weird. So, well, first we'll go to Kyle Seraphin. Kyle Seraphin says, so he says, let me get this straight. Kyle Seraphin is a former FBI agent, whistleblower. He says, so let me get this straight. For 4 years, the FBI had their thumbs up their asses. For 9 months, the new FBI had their thumbs up their asses. Steve Baker breaks the story open. CBS News debunks the story with puppies. CBS News breaks the arrest story. Yes? And CBS News, newly acquired CBS News by Larry Ellison's son, who is run by Barry Weiss now. Yeah, that CBS News is the ones that broke this story wide open. So let's go to Thomas Massie interviewing the old FBI director, Director Christopher Wray. Because, you know, you would think that new Kash Patel, he'd want to get to the bottom of the pipe bomber, right? Of the person that dropped off the pipe bombs on January 6th. You'd think Kash Patel would blow this thing wide open. In fact, him and Dan Bongino were both saying things in the past that January 6th was an inside job and the pipe bomb situation was likely an inside job as well. But for some reason, Dan Bongino and Kash Patel don't seem too interested in it, and they're sure they got the right guy in autistic, My Little Pony liking Brian Cole Jr. So let's listen to Thomas Massie questioning former FBI Director Christopher Wray. So this is from Thomas Massie's account. Thomas Massie says, it's been 900 days since the J6 pipe bombs were planted. So he posted this on July 12th, 2023. He says, it's been 900 days since the J6 pipe bombs were planted, and the FBI still refuses to provide information. Why is Wray stonewalling basic questions about the individual who may have found the bomb at the DNC? So let's watch this quick 3-minute clip.
Gentleman yields back. The gentleman from Kentucky is recognized for 5 minutes.
I thank the chairman. Director Wray, in light of information provided to us about the FBI's investigation of the January 6th pipe bombs, in an interview with Assistant Director Stephen D'Antuono, Chairman Jordan and I sent you a letter a month ago. Some of the information that we found in that interview was that phone data that could have helped to identify the pipe bomber was corrupted, was unusable.
We'll see why that's important in a minute. They said that the phone data that could have been used to track the person that dropped off the pipe bombs was corrupted. The FBI said that that's what they were told by the phone carriers, that the data was corrupted. That's what was reported to Thomas Massie from the FBI.
He also wasn't sure who found or how the second bomb was found at the DNC. Do you know how the second bomb was found at the DNC? And when do you plan on answering our letter?
Well, as to the letter, I will work with the department to make sure we can figure out what information we can provide. As you know, this is a very active, ongoing investigation, and there are some restrictions on that, but we will
Yes,
do
we
our
can
best to
handle
respond.
classified information, and we fund your department, and so you need to provide that.
It's not, respectfully, it's not an issue of classification. It's an issue of commenting on ongoing criminal investigations, which is something that by longstanding department policy, we are restricted in doing. And in fact, the last administration actually strengthened those policies partly
That's
because—
not our policy, though, and we fund you, so let's move on.
I could
Do you know how the
finish
second
partly
pipe bomb,
because—
can you tell us how the second pipe bomb was found at the DNC?
Again, I'm not going to get into that here.
900 days.
He's asking because it's like, how did they know where to look? Just watch the footage. It seems like they walked right over to the location of the pipe bomb. And they're like, oh, here it is. Just happened to find this little metal pipe in a bush. How'd they find it?
Days ago is when this happened, and you said you had total confidence we'd apprehend the subject. We've found video that looks like somebody, a passerby, miraculously found this pipe bomb at the DNC and then notified the police. Miraculously, I say, because it was specifically the precise time to cause the maximum distraction from the events going on at the Capitol. Can you show this video that we have, please? I'd like to know if the director has seen this.
And that's why this is also important. Why would intelligence agencies plant pipe bombs at the event, especially if they weren't going to go off? Well, it caused a massive distraction where obviously they were shorthanded on the events, the riot that occurred at January 6th. So this would provide ample distraction if you were trying to rile up the crowd and get them to storm the Capitol.
This is somebody with a mask on, wearing a hat. They're walking in front of the DNC, which is out of the view on the right-hand side. You'll see him come into view. He goes to one police car. He goes to another police car. He's holding a backpack. He's got a mask on. He's talking to the police. And within a minute, they start scrambling. You'll see the camera turn to the pipe bomb, the location of the pipe bomb. By the way, that's, I believe the Metro police are now getting out of their car, and that's Vice President-elect's detail in the black SUV, I believe, parked about 30 feet from the pipe bomb, eating lunch. Okay, now we go over to the location of the pipe bomb. The cameras are scrambling. It appears to me that that's not a coincidence, that the person with the backpack who walked by that bench and then went up to the police and the detail didn't do that accidentally. They had a purpose in mind, and that what transpired after that was the result of information that person gave to them. If that person found the pipe bomb, would they be a suspect?
Well, again, I don't want to speculate about specific individuals. I will tell you that we have done thousands of interviews, reviewed something like 40,000 video files, of which this is one, assessed 500 something tips.
Have you interviewed
reviewed
that
the
person?
devices. We have conducted all logical investigative steps and interviewed all logical individuals at this
Then
point.
you need, it's 900
continuing.
days. You need to tell us what you found, because we're finding stuff you haven't released into the public.
So as you can see, Thomas Massie has been trying to get to the bottom of this since the event actually happened. So let's look at what Kash Patel was saying, a year, 2, 3 before he became the FBI director. Let's see what he was saying about this event. This is him interviewing with Donald Trump Jr.
Based on the publication of the press conference, that yes, there were tips in there, clues in there that we keyed in on, like the sneakers, like the height, like the appearance, and we refined those images, and we—
Oh, my apologies. This is when he was FBI director, and he's saying how they knew this was Brian Cole Jr.
also used our brilliant CAS system, and what that is our cell phone analytic capability to go back and say who was in the area. And also, why wasn't this discovered before? It's not like we recreated the cell phone data from 5 years ago. People just sat on it. And that's your point. They decided not to do anything. We took the opposite approach, and look where we are today. We arrested the January 6th pipe bomber. Oh,
Wait a minute. I thought the cell phone data was corrupted. That's interesting. Well, Thomas Massie had some whistleblowers, or at least one whistleblower inside the FBI that was sort of feeding him information. And it turns out that Dan Bongino's people were not too happy about the fact that somebody inside the FBI was feeding Thomas Massie information about the J6 pipe bomb for reasons we can only speculate. But Thomas Massie tells this story in an interview that he did a few months ago. And we're going to watch a quick clip from that now.
Well, actually, just before that conversation, there was a second letter from this whistleblower's attorney sent to you and Congressman Loudermilk, saying that they had become aware that the FBI was going to do a mole search and look for this guy.
Yeah. Okay. So Bongino did tell me, look, tomorrow we're going to round up everybody that was involved in this investigation. We're going to get them all in a room. We're going to get to the bottom of it. And he didn't say we're trying to find the whistleblower.
Mm-hmm.
No. But my spidey sense went off, and I almost said to him in that moment, you better not be trying to find the whistleblower.
Right.
Because law protects that individual. But I didn't say it. Okay. Also, I'm going to say this here on camera because it's important. One of Kash Patel's staff threatened my staff with a criminal investigation if we didn't straighten up and play ball.
So why would they do that? Kash Patel's people threatened Thomas Massie for investigating this. And they said, we're going to put a lawsuit on one of your staffers if you don't stop trying to get to the bottom of this thing. Why? Remember, this isn't the new FBI. This isn't Christopher Wray's FBI. This isn't the FBI. Well, it is the same FBI, but Kash Patel's in charge now. So you'd think they'd want to get to the bottom of who planted this pipe bomb. And that's what Thomas Massie's been trying to do for years. But they didn't seem to like the direction he was going down.
I was going to ask you about that, but since you brought it up, and I didn't,
I'm bringing it up.
Okay, you brought it up.
And so, like a criminal investigation having nothing to do, he said it was going to be a fraud. We're going to investigate one of your staff for fraud. Right. And he told another one of my staff this: if you guys don't straighten up, if you want to play hardball, if this is how you want to play it or something like that, this member of your staff is going to get criminally investigated for fraud. A very specific threat.
Right.
And that had just happened. So I told Bongino, I said, one of your guys is threatening my guys with an FBI investigation.
Yeah.
If we don't do what you want. And he said, I'll take care of that. I'll take care of that. Because even he understood that was not a good look. It's probably illegal, right? So the fallout of that is the FBI employee who threatened my staff. I have to tell you all this, by the way, Steve, and I have to tell all the listeners this, because this is the context in which I'm worried for the whistleblower. Mm-hmm. If they're willing to retaliate against a congressional office, which has speech or debate immunity and a lot of other protections, they may be willing to retaliate against a whistleblower.
Right.
So the person who had made the threat to one of my staff through another staff, he sent a text. I got a copy of the text that said, Massie told Bongino, I have to apologize to you, or I should apologize to you. And then he said, I'm sorry if I hurt your feelings. He didn't apologize. He was unrepentant, let's say, really, that kind of non-apology.
Right.
And so that's the context in which when Bongino said, I'm going to have a big powwow, I'm pulling everybody in.
Yeah.
My spidey sense went off. Well, a few hours later, I get this second disclosure from the whistleblower attorney who says, we think they're going after the the whistleblower because they're having this big giant meeting.
Mhm.
Well, I had knowledge that a big giant meeting was happening.
Right.
So this comported with, and then I also had knowledge my own staff was being threatened.
Yeah.
So I took the attorney's letter seriously.
So why are they threatening him? Why are they threatening Massie's people with fraud charges for simply trying to get to the bottom of who planted the pipe bomb? And keep in mind, this was before the Blaze article came out. So there was no suspects. The Steve Baker from the Blaze article hadn't come out implicating the Capitol Police. Massie's still just trying to get to the bottom of who planted these pipe bombs. So him and Bongino started getting into it after this. And this is a text chain between Dan Bongino and Thomas Massie. Well, this is a Twitter exchange, I should say. And Dan Bongino is trying to, I'll just read what Dan Bongino said. Dan says, "I'm frequently disappointed in politicians, but Thomas Massie defied the odds in my unfortunate experience with him. As he surpassed my lowest expectations. This zero pretends to be principled defender of liberty, but in the real world, he supports third world tyranny." Thomas Massie supports tyranny. He's the guy that supports tyranny. Okay. "Here are the receipts from a phone call I had with this zero, offering him a briefing on multiple investigations he was inserting himself into by publicly commenting on him." How dare Thomas Massie comment on these investigations that have seemed to go nowhere for years? "Rather than affording the subjects of the cases their constitutional rights to due process, Massie chose to waive off the briefing and litigate it on X for clicks. Notice I tried to call him back, but he wasn't interested in facts. It's also of note that I never heard a single word from Massie during the process we engaged in to release the Epstein case docs. The process played out in the media everywhere, but yet Massie never reached out. Not once. It's almost as if he wants to be a moron, as if intelligence is bliss, as if ignorance is bliss for him. I am horrified. I once believed this guy was authentic." And he posts screenshots of outgoing calls to Thomas Massie. There's a community note on this that says the screenshots recycle the same November 2025 phone logs. 10-minute call plus missed follow-ups. They show contact occurred, but do not refute the J6 pipe bomb whistleblower letter on mishandling/retaliation or Massie's staff threat claims. Bongino left the FBI in January of 2026. So Massie responds to this. And Massie says, "Dan, in your first call, which I think is the first and last occasion you and I ever spoke, you seemed upset that I had received and had released FBI whistleblower information about the pipe bomb investigation. I informed you that your staff had threatened to criminally investigate my staff as retribution against me for pipe bomb or Epstein activity." So this is also in the middle of the Epstein files fiasco where, there seemed to be a cover-up of the release of the Epstein files by Patel, Bondi, Dan Bongino. The entire Trump administration was just trying to say, nothing to see here all of a sudden. "I informed you that your staff had threatened to criminally investigate my staff as retribution against me for the J6 pipe bomb or Epstein activity. You threatened to personally finance a defamation suit against reporters on behalf of a suspect. Perhaps it was also a veiled threat to sue me. You said those depositions aren't going to be fun for the people involved," or something like that. In any case, Deputy FBI Director shouldn't be financing civil lawsuits against reporters covering the case the FBI is working on. You said you were going to call every agent in and get to the bottom of the whistleblower issue. You offered me a briefing, but I was going to be tied up until at least 6 p.m. on the Epstein Files Transparency Act. So I asked you how late I could get the briefing, and you said you were going to leave the office at 5 p.m. I asked you a few questions on the phone, and your answers indicated to me that you were perhaps less informed than me on some of the issues, or you were going to be less than forthcoming. A few hours after the call, I received and released new FBI whistleblower information regarding the all-hands meeting, which matched what you told me in number 4 above, related to concern that the meeting was called to out the whistleblowers. Your second attempted call was the evening I achieved 218 signatures on the Epstein discharge petition, and I had been busy thwarting Mike Johnson's last-ditch effort to derail the Epstein Files Transparency Act. And he's like, I'm sorry, the other time you called me, I was a bit busy trying to get the Epstein files released, something else that your guys seem to be covering up. Note, not sure why your call logs show 1:36 a.m. You called me in the evening, maybe 8-ish. And the funny thing is, people did a search of like what time zone he would have been in for it to show up on Dan Bongino's end at 1:36 a.m. But if it was at Thomas Massie's end, it was around 8-ish. Well, that would have meant that he would have been in the Israeli time zone, is what they determined, but that's neither here nor there. Note, my staff also had the unfortunate pleasure of receiving numerous late night calls on Signal from FBI staff telling them there was absolutely nothing in the Epstein case and that I should back off. So, okay. Dan Bongino responds to him, of course, none of what you just vomited out is even remotely close to what happened, but you know that. You were offered an update on a case and you waved it off to continue bullshitting people on X. You were clear about that on the phone. You're a grifter and a fraud, and you know it. Okay, so Massie responds to that. Do you not remember I informed you that your staff had threatened my staff? Careful, there are receipts for this. So, okay, all right. So Dan Bongino and Massie start fighting back and forth about this because Massie's trying to get the Epstein files uncovered, and he's also trying to get to the bottom of the FBI whistleblower stuff. All right, so this is, you guys aren't going to read along with me, so I'm going to go to a different screen here. This is a press release from Chairman Barry Loudermilk and Thomas Massie regarding the pipe bomb investigation. This was released January 2nd, 2025, so nearly 5 years later. Today, the Committee on House Administration Subcommittee on Oversight Chairman Barry Loudermilk and the Committee on the Judiciary's Subcommittee on the Administrative State, sorry, that's just too wordy, Regulatory Reform and Antitrust Chairman Thomas Massie released a report on January 6, 2021 pipe bombs titled 4 years later, examining the state, I'm sorry, yeah, 4, not 5 years later, sorry, examining the state of the investigation into the RNC and DNC pipe bombs. Top takeaways, the security failures associated with the law enforcement response to the pipe bombs. The United States Secret Service failed to identify one of the devices during security sweeps at the DNC, resulting in the Vice President-elect Kamala Harris's motorcade passing within feet of one of the pipe bombs. At least 10 different Secret Service agents and 2 K-9 units came within feet of the pipe bomb before the Vice President-elect's arrival, yet never discovered the device. United States Capitol Police failed to properly secure and maintain a perimeter around the pipe bombs despite multiple orders to do so, allowing pedestrians and vehicular traffic to cross within feet of the explosive devices. The Capitol Police permitted vehicles and pedestrians to pass by the pipe bomb while the Capitol Police's bomb robot engaged with the device. That's hilarious. Yeah, go ahead. It's fine. Or we'll send in the robot because anyway. At the DNC, for example, more than 40 vehicles and 10 pedestrians breached the security perimeter around the pipe bomb between its discovery and when law enforcement ultimately cleared the scene. Law enforcement allowed the motorcade of the Speaker of the House of Representatives to drive through the active bomb scene, risking the safety of the Speaker. The FBI's investigation into the pipe bomber. The FBI did not receive corrupted data from one of the major cell carriers in connection with its investigation into the pipe bomb. Remember, that's what they originally told Massie, that they couldn't use the cell data because it was corrupted. A former senior FBI official testified that the major cell carrier companies provided corrupted cell data to the FBI and suggested that the corrupted data may have contained the identity of the pipe bomber. However, in responses to letters from the subcommittee, the major cell phone carriers confirmed that they did not provide corrupted data to the FBI and that the FBI never notified them of any issues with accessing the cellular data. And then remember, Kash Patel says, well, this is how we found them because of the cellular data. So it's just a bunch of contradictions there. In the early weeks and months of the investigation, the FBI took significant investigative steps to identify the suspect, including issuing geofence warrants analyzing cell tower data, conducting forensic analysis of the devices, tracking the device's components, and reviewing hours of security camera footage. The FBI identified multiple persons of interest during the initial weeks and months of the investigation, including a person of interest who searched the term pipe bomb DC online to law enforcement's discovery of the pipe bomb, but after their placement. A person of interest who, on the morning of January 5th, 2021, took pictures of the area behind the RNC where the pipe bombs would later be planted. So somebody took pictures the morning that the pipe bombs were planted. The pipe bombs were planted later that evening. So whatever happened with that guy. A vehicle of interest carrying a passenger matching the description of the suspect that drove past the RNC minutes after the suspect planted the pipe bombs. A person of interest who owned the same unique pair of sneakers as the suspect, Nike Air Max Speed Turf sneakers, and worked in the area of the crime. 5 persons of interest or potential targets whose cellular data indicated their movements on the evening of January 5th, 2021 may have matched their movements of the suspect. Excuse me. Despite its initial efforts, the FBI has yet to identify the suspect and has refused to provide the subcommittee with additional information about these investigative leads. Background: on January 6, 2021, 2 pipe bombs were discovered outside the DNC RNC. Although it has been nearly 4 years, the FBI has yet to identify, apprehend, and charge the individual responsible for planting the pipe bombs. In March of 2024, Chairman Loudermilk held a hearing on the pipe bomb response titled 3 years later, assessing law enforcement response to the pipe bomb on January 6th. All right, let's keep going here. So let's get into the actual footage that Steve Baker used to determine, well, to suggest that it was a Capitol Police officer named Shauni Kerkhoff that actually planted the pipe bombs. So this is a thread from Steve Baker. So he says, what this video means and why it's important. First disclosure of our work. This is in April 9th of 2026. Instructions included in comment thread below. These side-by-side videos of the gray hoodied J5th pipe bomber and former Capitol Police officer Shauni Kerkhoff were taken approximately 18 hours apart in less than 2,030 feet from each other. So this first video is the actual. So this video I'm playing here, let me go to full screen so you guys can see it a little better. Okay, so this image on the left is the person that actually dropped off the pipe bomb. Oh, you guys can't see my cursor, can you? There you go. So the person on the left is the person that dropped off the pipe bomb. The person on the right, where my cursor is circling, that is Shauni Kerkhoff with the Capitol Police. So just pay attention to the way they are walking, particularly the right foot. So the right foot's crossing over the left foot. That's what they're suggesting there. So you see this. Now, try and walk like that. Like, it's hard. I did it. I went out and tried to walk like that, and it's indicative of an injury that somebody that had occurred, or playing a certain sport like soccer that you would sort of practice that move, being able to change direction left to right. So yeah, they're both walking in that exact same way. It's almost a limp. It's a strange way of walking. So you can see the right leg crosses over the left foot. That's Shauni Kerkhoff running on the right. Here's another video. Person on the left walking down the sidewalk. Shauni Kerkhoff on the right entering a building. You can see the right foot crosses over the left foot. It's just a strange way of walking. And they didn't just use the naked eye to determine this. They used forensic analysis, computer simulations that determined with a 94 to 96% accuracy that these are the same people, just based on the way they walk. That's what Steve Baker determined. So we'll continue reading his description here. So Steve Baker says the most important aspect of this video, which many fail to identify, is that in both videos, the individual crosses her right leg over the left leg at the apex of a moderate right-hand turn. This is a highly unnatural move for the vast majority of people. Try it. Take a moment, stand up, and give it a go. Pay attention to not cross your left leg over your right leg during the turn. That is the more natural act. It must be the right leg over the left leg in the right hand turn as seen as the video. So if you're turning right, crossing your right leg over the left, you'd think you'd cross your left leg over the right, is what he's saying. So he continues, if you match the speed in the videos and didn't trip yourself, you have likely spent many years compensating your gait for a congenital condition, or as a result of a serious injury. You may also be an experienced athlete who has spent years training in a sport where a right over left crossover is frequently used, like soccer, where Shauni Kerkhoff was a professional soccer player. He says, the bottom line, it's another absurd improbability in the case that the two individuals of the same relative height, build, and shoe size would also have identical gait circumduction anomaly to be captured on video 18 hours and less than 1/10 of a mile apart from one another and not be the same person. He continues, and I will be showing more of these comparative videos and evidence in the coming days and weeks, far more than the FBI has ever been willing to show you over the past 5 years. Please consider supporting our efforts. So at the very least, the FBI should have been investigating this person based on this gait analysis, but they actually went out of their way to clear this person that now works for the CIA. How interesting. So we'll continue. This is also from Steve Baker. Steve Baker says, the J6 video you've never seen. The much feared media company killing law firm Claire Locke that represents former Capitol Police officer and current CIA asset Shauni Kerkhoff. Oh, let's be real. They represented the CIA. Sent a demand preservation letter to the Blaze, me, and Hanny reports. Basically a threat of a defamation lawsuit. In that letter, they stated, Blaze media analysis was also factually flawed. Ms. Kerkhoff's 2015 soccer injury did not give her a slight limp from which any reasonable analyst could link her to the bombing suspect. Ms. Kerkhoff has fully recovered from the injury. In the interim, she has run multiple marathons. Okay. Okay. Given that Claire Locke has dedicated resources to monitoring every word we write and every one of our media appearances, they must know that we have hours of videos of Ms. Kerkhoff's unusual circumduction gait, a kind of limp. Hours of video we harvested from Capitol CCTV of her as a Capitol Police officer on January 5th and 6th, 2021. And from her short professional soccer career, almost all of which is readily available to any member of the public, press, or one of the law firm's taxpayer-funded paralegals, routed through some dark money conduit, foundation, or NGO. Kerkhoff cannot afford a $1,800 per hour law firm, well known for not taking defamation cases on contingency. So that's the other thing, is Shauni Kerkhoff's just a CIA, analyst or whatever she is. I don't know if she's an analyst or what her job is, but I mean, how can she afford this insanely expensive attorney to do a defamation lawsuit, which are extremely hard to prove and are extremely expensive? So somebody's clearly funding this lawsuit. Is Claire Locke incompetently representing their client, Ms. Kerkhoff, or the CIA, by that easily disproved assertion? Or were they trying to scare the Blaze into quick settlement before their client would have to face the harsh reality of trial discovery? As for Ms. Kerkhoff being a marathon runner, we already knew that. Despite their best efforts to scrub her former internet history, we'd already captured many photos of her participation in marathon events from deep web scrapes. The most interesting little nugget about that is the until recently congressional liaisons to the FBI, Marshall Yates, once told me while reviewing the video of the J6 pipe bomber in the office of his former employee, Rep. Thomas Massie, we need to be looking for a marathon runner. Why? Because of distinct physical traits that are characteristic of a marathon runner and exhibited by the bomber while on the 44-minute trek around the DNC and RNC on the night of J 5th. So that's funny. Before any of this, they were saying, yeah, we need to be looking for a marathon runner. and they use the fact that Shauni Kerkhoff has run marathons to try and discredit his reporting. That's just interesting. Claire Locke says, no limp. Video evidence says otherwise. Joe and I launch our new endeavor on Monday, free of corporate media censorship, blah, blah, blah. All right, let's keep going here because there's just a ton to review here. Oh, that's what I just read here. Okay, so something very interesting about the Shauni Kerkhoff situation is she was interviewed about this by the FBI and directly asked, did you plant the pipe bombs? And this was done with a polygraph. So this is from the Skiff over on X. Recent court filings show former Capitol Police Officer Shauni Kerkhoff allegedly failed polygraph tests conducted by the FBI about January 5th. Kerkhoff was asked if she placed any pipe bombs on January 5th, 2021, and allegedly wasn't being honest according to the test results. So they post a screenshot. Shauni Kerkhoff was named as a person of interest in the January 5th and 6th, 2021 pipe bomb investigation. So the FBI was actually looking at her as a person of interest. Ms. Kerkhoff was a U.S. Capitol Police officer on January 6, 2021, and was present at the Capitol on that date. Ms. Kerkhoff now works for the Central Intelligence Agency. According to discovery produced by the government in this case, the FBI began investigating, questioning, and covertly surveilling Ms. Kerkhoff during the time it began its investigation into Mr. Cole. So they were actually looking at her all the way up until they charged Brian Cole, the autistic My Little Pony fan. Well, they were looking at Ms. Kerkhoff here. So it wasn't like she wasn't on their radar and they weren't actually thinking. So they thought she was a person of interest in this. On November 6th, 2025, Ms. Kerkhoff was interviewed. So this is not that long ago, November 6, 2025. Ms. Kerkhoff was interviewed by the FBI and took a polygraph examination. She was asked two relevant questions. Did you place those pipe bombs? And did you place those pipe bombs that evening? Ms. Kerkhoff failed the polygraph. The FBI polygraph examiner noted Kerkhoff's very controlled reaction to the news of her failing the polygraph and seemingly okay, it's cut off, so I apologize. So that's highly interesting. She was a person of interest. They gave her a polygraph test. They asked her straight up, did you plant the pipe bombs? She said no. They determined she was not being forthcoming. So highly interesting. All right, this is another text exchange between Dan Bongino and Thomas Massie, which I'm not even going to get into. You guys already can see that it appears Massie's trying to get to the bottom of this, and Dan Bongino seems to be trying to cover it up. Well, he was before he became a podcaster again, which if you ask me, I think he's still working for the feds. He's just trying to do it from a propaganda standpoint now. So Steve Baker says, we retracted nothing. Okay, so yeah, so we retracted nothing, and nothing that Hani Reports and I have published has been debunked. Oh, sure. MSM outlets, FBI sources, and members of the former agents group, FAGS as an acronym for former agents group, have all said, nuh-uh, but that isn't debunking. That's not doing the work themselves and showing different results. No one has yet ever done that. They are still only parroting the intel community's narrative told through sources who also haven't done the work, delivering the message they have been assigned to spread. The muzzle has been discarded. There is no longer a paycheck imposed gag order. Joe and I are now free to tell all. So he's saying that now that he doesn't work for the Blaze anymore, he's free to say whatever he wants about this, and he's going to. So this is from Kyle Seraphin, who agreed to come on the show and talk about this. I don't have a date that he's coming on yet, but hopefully I will be talking to him next Saturday. That is the plan. Today is Saturday, May 2nd. So hopefully he'll be on the 9th. All right, let's keep going here. Viva Fry says, Viva Fry, whose show I was just on last week, He says Kerkhoff has officially sued Baker, Hanneman, and The Blaze. Skimmed through it very quickly. It's 127 pages. So Kerkhoff did file the lawsuit, obviously, with that really expensive law firm that she can't afford, but somebody's paying for it. A few important takeaways that I noticed so far. It seems that the alibi mentioned in the CBS News is in fact not a video of Kerkhoff playing with her puppies, but a video of a dog with a voice in the background that is allegedly Kerkhoff's. So that was the thing. That was her alibi for not being, she couldn't have planted the pipe bombs because at the time on January 5th, when the pipe bombs were planted, she was at home playing with her dogs. Here's video evidence of it. Well, it wasn't video. It's just a picture of a dog on a couch. I'm sorry, it is a video of a dog on a couch, but it's just, her voice in the background. Page 89, defendants published their false accusations against me, Kerkhoff, to further preconceived narrative that the J6 riot was an inside job and twisted the facts to fit that preconceived narrative. Reading through the lawsuit, I was struck how it read more as a defense of the Capitol Police than a claim for Kerkhoff. As I have always said from the practice, lawsuits are a two-way street. This one is going to be fascinating to know. So he posted some screenshots here. Yeah, that's just the dog laying on the couch. But defendant's spurious claims eventually fell apart. Okay, I don't need to read this. So this is just claims she made in her lawsuit against Steve Baker. Kyle Serafin says, in a new lawsuit, 127 pages in length, attorneys for Shauni Kerkhoff allege a non-distinction to falsely insist that Ms. Kerkhoff had presented an inconsistent alibi, dog versus puppies. Will anyone mistake the screenshots of a greyhound sleeping for playing with puppies? So it's just funny. Like that's her alibi for being able to, I couldn't have possibly planted this pipe bomb. I was at home playing with my dog. Here's a video of my dog. And that's me in the background talking. That's not much of an alibi, if you ask me. So, all right, let's get into Brian Cole. Brian Cole Jr., the person that the FBI charged for planting the pipe bombs 1 month after Steve Baker came out with his article alleging that Shauni Kerkhoff planted the pipe bombs. So just also really, really interesting timing there that the FBI found their patsy, if you ask me. This guy's a patsy. And it was just 1 month after they said it looks like a Capitol police officer who now works for the CIA actually planted these pipe bombs. FBI was like, nope, that's not the case. It was this autistic kid that likes My Little Ponies. Okay, so Brian Cole Jr., full name Brian J. Cole Jr., is a 30-year-old African-American from Woodbridge, Virginia, who was arrested on December 4th, 2025, and charged in connection with planting 2 pipe bombs outside the Republican National Committee and Democrat National Committee headquarters in Washington, D.C. on the evening of January 5th, 2021, the night before the J6 Capitol riot. He has no prior criminal record, only minor traffic violations afterward, is not registered to vote, graduated from C.D. Hilton High School in Woodbridge in 2013, and lives with his mother and other family members in a single-family home. He is one of 4 children. Neighbors describe him as quiet, naive, and eccentric. He was often seen walking his Chihuahua in shorts and red Crocs, even in cold weather. Kept to himself and followed strict daily routines. Example, walking the dog. A former high school classmate noted he did not speak much. His grandmother described him as very naive and almost autistic-like. His occupation, Cole worked in the office of a bail bondsman in North Virginia with his father, Brian Cole Sr., and that's Brian Cole Bail Bonds. Mental health. His defense attorneys have stated in court filings that he has been diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder level 1, a mild form requiring some support, and obsessive compulsive disorder. They have used this, along with his lack of criminal history and community ties, to argue against pretrial detention, claiming he poses no threat to society and follows strict routines. He is described as functional high school graduate with steady employment, but neurodivergent. There is no public indication of intellectual disability or being mentally handicapped in the traditional sense. A judge has ordered him held in custody, citing him as a danger to the community. The incident on January 5th, 2025. Okay, so this is just reviewing what we've already been talking about when the pipe bombs were planted and stuff. So we're going to skip that. Charges. Initial charges are on December 25th. Criminal complaint, interstate transportation of explosives, and attempted malicious destruction and damage by fire or explosive. Each charge carries 10 to 20 years. January 6, 2026 indictment, superseding a DC Superior Court version, same 2 counts, interstate transportation of explosives and malicious attempt to use explosives. On April of 2026, so just a few days ago actually, superseding indictment, they added 2 more serious charges: attempting to use weapons of mass destruction and attempting an act of terrorism while armed, potentially carrying life sentences. Cole has pleaded not guilty to all charges. So the initial charges only carried 10 to 20 years. Now they added charges that carry life sentences. So they're trying to put this guy away for life, who's a patsy, if you ask me. He remains in federal custody as of the latest reports. His attorney have argued unsuccessfully so far for release, and even that certain presidential pardons related to the J6 events might apply, though this has not dismissed the case. Okay, so here's the evidence against Brian Cole Jr. The case relies on a combination of circumstantial evidence and Cole's post-arrest confession detailed in later court filings. Key points from the FBI affidavit and prosecutors include. So you'd think if he confessed to it and they offered him a deal, you'd think that he would just plead guilty and take the deal, but he's not. He's pleading not guilty, which actually seemed to surprise the prosecutors. Purchase records in 2019 and 2020, and shortly after the incident, Cole's bank and credit card records show he bought items exactly matching the bomb components at Northern Virginia's stores. So I should mention that a lot of these things that were purchased, ordinary people have in their garages, like just, do-it-yourself type people. Home Depot, Walmart, Lowe's, Micro Center. Examples: multiple 1-inch by 8-inch galvanized pipes. I have 1-inch galvanized pipes. I don't have end caps for them, but like they're used. You can use them for all sorts of stuff. I use them for running through a spool of wire and holding it up on stands to run wire. Anyway, because that's what I do for a living. Black and galvanized end caps, 9-volt battery connectors, white kitchen timers, 14 gauge red and black wire, steel wool, plus tools like wire strippers, gloves, and safety glasses. Because who buys steel wool, safety glasses, wire strippers, gloves? Like, that's just standard stuff. Red and black wire, 14 gauge red and black wire. That's speaker wire. 14 gauge red and black wire, probably with a white jacket. That's freaking speaker wire. So like this guy could have been running speaker wire through his walls for all we know with these purchases. Like even with the galvanized pipes, they didn't say end caps. That's funny. Yeah, that's funny. I don't see purchases for end caps in here. And that's like one of the most important parts of building a pipe bomb. So I've heard. Feds, don't look at me. I don't know how to make a pipe bomb. I could probably figure it out though. I never would, you guys. I never would do that. Cell phone location data. His phone connected to cell towers in the exact areas and times the suspect was captured on video placing devices. 7 data sessions between 7:39 and 8:24 p.m. on January 5th, 2024, matching the suspect's footpath near the RNC and DNC. So again, remember, I thought the cell phone data was corrupted. It's weird how it's not corrupted anymore. Also, apparently this guy drove for Uber Eats. So a lot of people are speculating that, yeah, his car was in the area because he was delivering Uber Eats. So anyway, vehicle data, his 2017 Nissan Sentra was recorded by a license plate reader, flock camera, at 7:10 p.m. near the area where the suspect was seen on foot. Physical descriptions match. Height, glasses, clothing, shoes from the video align with Cole. Confession: after the arrest, Cole allegedly gave a lengthy interview in which he admitted assembling and planting the 2 pipe bombs. He told investigators something just snapped. After watching everything getting worse, and that he believed the 2020 election was rigged due to conspiracy theories. Okay, well, why'd you plant a pipe bomb outside the RNC? He reportedly said that he was not targeting the joint session of Congress certifying the election. Prosecutors have detailed this in court filings. Note, the initial pretrial arrest affidavit does not include the confession, as it predates his arrest. Okay. The investigation lasted nearly 5 years, involving review of thousands of hours of video, purchase records, cell data, and leads, the cell data that apparently isn't corrupted anymore. No direct link to the January 6th Capitol riot. Participants have been publicly alleged. The bombs were placed the night before and did not explode. The case remains ongoing, with Cole presumed innocent until proven guilty. This covers all publicly reported information from official sources, DOJ court filings, FBI affidavit, and credible news outlets as of early May 2026. No other significant background, military service, or prior activism has been reported. Let's keep going about Brian Cole. So this is a thread from Thomas Massie, who's it's rather long, but we're gonna go through it here. So this is from Thomas Massie. I actually have this report pulled up somewhere, but I don't know if I'm going to get into the whole report. So Thomas Massie's key takeaways of the January 6th pipe bomb played a role in diverting resources and facilitating the breach of the Capitol. Our report details, despite the threat the pipe bombs posed to Congress and the public, federal law enforcement has refused to provide substantive updates to Congress about the status of the investigation. For example, 400 bike racks could not be deployed to secure the Capitol at 1:28 p.m. on January 6th because the DNC pipe bomb perimeter cut off their delivery. However, 40 vehicles, 10 pedestrians, and Speaker Pelosi's motorcade were allowed to travel through the secured perimeter. Despite a 4-year investigation, the FBI currently has no leads and no suspects. The American public deserves more transparency from the FBI. Unfortunately, the Biden administration has prioritized locking up nonviolent J6ers over the deadly pipe bomber. And this is from January of 2025. So this is a while ago. This is long before the Blaze article came out, and obviously long before Brian Cole was charged. And I apologize, my dog is snoring in the background. Former FBI director of the Washington, D.C. field office, Steve D'Antonio, I'm pronouncing that wrong, testified to me and Judiciary GOP that the cell phone data obtained by the FBI to track the suspected pipe bomber was corrupted. Again, so they're using the cell phone data, but earlier they said it was corrupted. Obtained evidence that contradicted his testimony. The FBI issued a geofence warrants to identify devices that were in the vicinity of the RNC and DNC the night the pipe bombs were placed. The FBI's collection of the data yielded credible leads. D'Antonio misled Judiciary GOP about the results from the geofence warrant. In early 2021, the FBI obtained data from another warrant on a person who had searched Pipe Bomb DC, but the FBI's actions were in response to this lead remain unknown, and the suspect remains unknown. With the FBI gathering 105 million points of data on the suspect by April of 2021, it's hard to comprehend how the case has gone unsolved for 4 years. Why isn't the case solved, and why does the FBI continue to withhold information from Congress? The ATF and FBI described the devices as viable, but that's not a standard description used by bomb technicians. ATF and FBI refused to provide supporting details or reports. Since the devices did not function as intended, we remain curious whether they were inert or inoperable. In early 2021, the FBI identified specific leads by the brand of timers used to build the pipe bombs, but it's unknown what, if anything, resulted from these leads. And they show pictures of the pipe bombs. So yeah, they got kitchen timers attached to them, red wires leading to, I'll show the screenshot really quick. So this is pictures of the pipe bombs here. Just super rudimentary devices. I don't see this autistic kid being able to put this together, but you got to drill a hole in the end cap. You've got the kitchen timer. You've got to run leads off of the kitchen timer. Leads are wires that connect to a positive and negative, and when the kitchen timer counts down to 0, it sends a electrical current to those leads, which would be sent through the wire into the end cap that would provide spark for whatever flammable material is inside the pipe bomb. I have never made a pipe bomb. I don't know how to make a pipe bomb, but they're simple. They're just, I'm an AV guy. Like, I understand triggers, volts. I understand triggers, relays, switches, all that kind of stuff. So this is not a complicated thing. Okay, we'll continue. Also, I was nowhere near DC on January 5th or 6th. I wanted to go. I actually wanted to go to the J6 thing. Pretty glad I didn't. All right, let's go to Judge Jeanine Pirro. So this was when they decided a month after Steve Baker's article that we got him. We got the guy. So let's listen to Jeanine Pirro give her press conference here.
General. For example, there were 233,000 black end caps of the type that were used in this case. I want you to think about the fact that the FBI had to go through the sale of every one of them to try to find commonality with an individual, along with the purchase of the pipe itself, the cap ends, the wires, the steel, and the 9-volt batteries.
So I should say, okay, we've got to find somebody that made the purchases of these things. No, actually, notice she references the end caps there. The end caps are, you have a steel pipe that's threaded on both sides, and you screw on metal caps. That's what end caps are. Notice that's what she's talking about, the purchase of however many she just said, end caps. Remember when I listed off the credit card purchases that Brian Cole Jr. allegedly made from Lowe's and Home Depot and Walmart or whatever? End caps were not listed in those purchases. The steel pipe was, the wire was, the kitchen timers was, steel wool was. End caps were not. End caps were not listed in the things that he supposedly purchased. So I imagine what the FBI did is they went through credit card purchases. Who bought these end caps? Okay, now let's cross-reference that with geo-fenced cellular data that shows who was in the vicinity of that area. So who made these purchases and was in the vicinity of this area? Well, I'm sure they created that list a very long time ago, years ago. And Brian Cole probably popped up on that list, even though they don't say he bought the end caps. And they determined, well, this guy can't be the suspect. This autistic kid that wears Crocs likes My Little Ponies. I keep saying that because I heard somewhere that he's a brony. Bronies are dudes that like My Little Ponies. Don't ask me why I know that. I don't like My Little Ponies. I'm just saying I don't. So they cross-reference the cell phone data. They with the purchase materials, even though the list that they said Brian Cole Jr. purchased did not include end caps, and they get a list of people that, meet those needs. Well, why didn't they charge Brian Cole Jr. years ago? I'm sure his name popped up on this list of people that are suspects years ago. Why did they wait a month after Steve Baker said, we determined that with a 94% certainty that it was Shauni Kerkhoff of the Capitol Police, who now works for the CIA, that planted those pipe bombs based on Gait analysis? And we are pretty certain that's who did it. Because she's got an alibi. She was at home petting her Italian Greyhound. Okay.
Every one of those had to be mined and remined to the point where we were able to then connect. And make no mistake, it was this administration, it was this president who made the decision that we were going to use all of our efforts to get it done, and get it done they did. Finally, let me say this. Today begins the formal process of accountability, where this defendant will begin his journey through the criminal justice system. And I pledge to you that the United States Attorney's Office will take this case across the finish line. Again, thank you to the incredible work of the FBI, to the Attorney General, and to our local partners as well. This is a job that I think was well done.
Okay, we got him, guys. We got him. Brian Cole Jr., he's definitely the guy that did it. We determined that a month after Steve Baker's article, not in the 5 years prior. Okay, if you say so. So this is from Viva Fry. He says, setting aside all issues relating to Kerkhoff's alleged / potential / denied involvement in the J6 pipe bombs, once you understand that her defamation lawsuit, much like the CBS article, is actually also a disguised hit piece on the ODNI, you will read everything entirely differently. So he circles this. And it says, Baker shared his tip with the ODNI only weeks before his planned reporting on Ms. Kerkhoff. On information and belief, this tip was a key component of defendants' orchestrated plan to falsely name Ms. Kerkhoff as the pipe bomber. Standing alone, Gait analysis was not enough to name Ms. Kerkhoff, but if defendants could reference an existing investigation in line with their own conclusions, they could create illusions of credibility of their claims. Baker set out to manufacture exact corroborative evidence he needed by taking this. So if you ask me, the two pieces of evidence, which are huge pieces of evidence to me, that Shauni Kerkhoff, using the Gait analysis, determined that with the 94% certainty that the person that planted the pipe bombs, the person in that video, matches Shauni Kerkhoff when she's walking around on January 6th, other footage, they determined that that matches. But in conjunction with that, she was asked by the FBI while under a polygraph test if she planted the pipe bombs. And it determined that she was not being truthful. So those two pieces of evidence together are huge. And if you ask me, those are stronger pieces of evidence than, yeah, we have cell phone data that Brian Cole Jr. was in the area, doesn't place him exactly at the scene. And he bought all of these items on credit cards that could be bomb-making materials, even though they didn't include the end caps. And from my understanding, some of those purchases were made before the election results even came out. So why is he making these purchases before he even knows that the Trump election was stolen? You know, why would the, and I didn't say that, YouTube. I'm saying that's what Brian Cole Jr. would have said. So to me, just looking at it, it's like stepping back and looking at, okay, Shauni Kerkhoff, Brian Cole Jr. The evidence against Shauni Kerkhoff is more. The Gait analysis determined that the person in the video is Shauni Kerkhoff. She's a Capitol Police officer. She was there on January 6th. She's obviously could have been in the area on January 5th. I'd like to see if there's any cell phone data that shows that she was in the area. And she failed a polygraph when she was directly asked if you planted the pipe bombs. Those are major pieces of evidence. So she's not being charged. Somebody's funding this defamation lawsuit against Steve Baker. She now works for the CIA. What? Like, you're charging Brian Cole Jr., but you're just saying that no, of course not. Shauni Kerkhoff, who failed the polygraph test when she was asked if she planted the pipe bombs, and the Gait analysis suggests with a 94% certainty that she's the one that planted the pipe bombs. No, she's cleared of everything. Like, this sounds insane to me. He has another screenshot here. He said, this is from the defamation lawsuit, Shauni Kerkhoff versus Steve Baker. Baker shared his tip with the ODNI only weeks before his planned reporting on Ms. Kerkhoff on information, and believes this tip was a key component of defendants' orchestrated plan to falsely name Ms. Kerkhoff as the pipe bomber. Standing alone. Okay, this is what he just circled before. Is this the same thing? Okay, so the CBS News report further confirmed what Baker had represented in his November 5th article, specifically that he took his false findings to a federal agency other than the FBI, the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. So that's also the office that, what's his name, just left under Tulsi Gabbard. I'm blanking on his name right now. You guys know who I'm talking about. So he took it to them, not the FBI. Why? Probably because he trusted them more. Baker's report triggered an ODNI unit to write a memo identifying Ms. Kerkhoff and describing Baker's false allegations about her. An unfinished copy of that memorandum was given to senior staff at the CIA and triggered an unwarranted federal investigation of Ms. Kerkhoff. So that's why they polygraphed her. An unwarranted. Really? I mean, that's evidence. So wouldn't you at least interview her about it? Like, what do you mean unwarranted? And then she failed the polygraph. That's incredible. Okay, let's keep going. On information and belief, had Baker never taken his tip to ODNI never would have drafted the memorandums. Had ODNI never drafted the memorandums, the memorandum never would have landed at the FBI. Had the memorandum never landed at the FBI never would have investigated Ms. Kerkhoff. This is confirmed by the request for the subpoena, which indicates the FBI sought an independent gait analysis and expert forensic methodology that has never been used at trial or in American courts. But again, she failed the polygraph. So they're saying that the only reason she was investigated in the first place is because of Baker going to the ODNI and saying, look, I have this evidence that suggests Shauni Kerkhoff, the former Capitol Police officer, now CIA agent, actually planted the pipe bombs. You guys should probably interview her. So they did. They gave her a polygraph and she failed. Oh, well, let's wrap it up. This investigation's over. This autistic kid did it. What? Like, this is insane to me. This is in her defamation lawsuit. Incredible. Okay, I got this Blaze Media article. We're gonna read it because it's kind of long, and I know this video is gonna be long, but I mean, there's a lot here, you guys. And if you made it this far, please like the video, subscribe, all that good stuff. I've been meaning to do this for a while now, but to me, this is a hugely important story that isn't getting enough attention because it just shows that, I mean, not only was the deep state involved in the January 6th situation, but it also shows that now under new leadership that Trump hand appointed, that it seems that the same shenanigans are still going on. And we're talking about January 6th, where they tried to claim Trump started an insurrection. Wouldn't you think that Trump would want to be all over this and get to the bottom of who did it? Much like who tried to shoot him in Butler, Pennsylvania. Wouldn't he want to know more about Tyler Robinson, who didn't have silverware and had no social media presence, even though later on we found out he had a massive social media presence? Anyway, like, just none of this makes any sense. And I feel like we need to cover this. So that's what I'm doing here. I know it's a long video, but I want to get through all of it. So thank you if you're still here watching. We've got a bit more to get through, probably another half hour or so. Okay, maybe longer. So this is from Blaze Media, and this is from Joe Hanneman and Steve Baker. So Blaze Media, prosecution of Brian Cole Jr. for January 6 pipe bombs raises more questions than answers. So this is obviously before Steve Baker left Blaze Media. Defense attorney Mario Williams argues there was no confession made to the FBI. I say he's the wrong person. The narrative out there about him is wrong. Okay, so Brian Cole Jr. allegedly confessed to doing this and then pleaded not guilty. Well, defense attorney said there was no confession made to the FBI. I say he's the wrong person. The narrative out there is, and this is defense attorney, so he's supposed to be saying stuff like this, but he's saying he didn't confess. The criminal case against Brian Jerome Cole Jr. for the alleged January 2021 placement of the 2 pipe bombs on Capitol Hill raises more questions than it answers about Cole's involvement that night and why the FBI appears to not have addressed notable actions in its case documents, as well as the strange behavior of Capitol Police investigators that immediately followed. The government alleges that Cole, 30 years old, who the defense says is an autistic man with obsessive compulsive disorder, was a lone wolf who somehow evaded FBI's massive dragnet for nearly 5 years. Blaze News examined the charges against Cole to see if his arrest fits the case, history, and facts already in the public square. The list of conflicts, problems, and questions is extensive. This is part 1. I'm pretty confident that we're closing in on some suspects. So that's a quote from someone here. The defense disclosure that Cole suffers from level 1 autism spectrum disorder and obsessive compulsive disorder recasts the prosecution's case and called into question the FBI's 4-hour interview of Cole on December 4th and his alleged detailed confession without an attorney present. So they questioned him without an attorney, and that's when he confessed. How convenient. I know that the government has come out and claimed that Mr. Cole has made confessions, defense attorney Mario Williams said in an interview with the WTTG. Not true. That interview, we do not consider a confession at all, Williams said. While Williams asserted his client's innocence, he declined to comment on whether his client is the hoodie-wearing person depicted in the footage of the bomber. On January 9th, Cole pleaded not guilty to 2 felony charges in U.S. District Court in Washington, D.C., transportation of explosives and malicious attempt to use explosives. His defense has pointed out that a 5-year statute of limitations on the charges for transporting explosives expired a day before the federal grand jury handed up the 2-count indictment. The status of that charge is not clear. That's funny. So they reached a statute of limitations. That's how long it's been to charge this guy. Okay, so disbelief and muted praise. Cole's arrest was greeted by skepticism and disbelief by the Cole family, by an FBI whistleblower who worked on the pipe bomb case, and by officials inside the FBI, U.S. Department of Justice, and White House, who all spoke privately to the Blaze News. Cole's grandmother, Loretta R. Cole Donette, told a reporter that her grandson operates on the mental level of a 16-year-old. While FBI Director Kash Patel went out of his way to credit then Deputy Director Dan Bongino for assembling a new FBI team that solved the pipe bomb case using only evidence and tips the Bureau had already compiled, the White House remained silent. So it's just, this is all stuff there that no new evidence came out. They just happened to figure it out a month after Steve Baker put this article out. Interesting. Even the FBI's initial self-congratulations have been muted since the initial press conference. After Bongino left the FBI in early 2026 to return to his podcasting career, Patel's farewell comments failed to mention his most high-profile success. Dan heads back to the private sector after helping orchestrate a record year for the FBI, Patel wrote on X on January 4th. The director cited 8 examples of the U.S. murder rate to Operation Summer Heat, but nary a mention of the pipe bombs. Interesting. I mean, this is such a huge deal. You'd think this would be the number one thing that Dan Bongino did. We got the guy. This stands in contrast with the attention the two brought to the case in the months leading up to the arrest and its immediate aftermath. In May, Bongino listed the January 6 pipe bombs as one of the top 3 cases he and Patel planned to focus on. We made the decision to either reopen or push additional resources and investigate attention to the case, Bongino wrote on X in May of 2025. Bongino said in May of 2025 that the FBI had been working anew on the pipe bomb case ever since Patel was sworn in the 9th as the 9th director the previous February. He told Fox News, the second we got in, I put a team on it and said, I want answers on this. And I'm pretty confident that we're closing in on some suspects. It's not clear what became of any of the other suspects, plural. Bongino mentioned this past spring that there was no further word about the case for more than 5 months, and the FBI now alleges Cole acted alone. 2 months later, in July, Bongino garnered more than 20 million views with a single post on X writing that he was shocked by the things he had learned about the FBI during his brief tenure. He made the remarks in the context of a pledge that he and Patel were committed to stamping out public corruption and political weaponization of both law enforcement and intelligence operations, and later told radio host Vince Colglinese they were specifically in reference to anti-Trump corruption he uncovered investigating the Obama FBI's 2016 Crossfire Hurricane counterintelligence operation that alleged Russian interference in the election. It is a priority for us, but what I have learned in the course of our properly predicated and necessary investigations into the aforementioned matters has shocked me down to my core, he wrote on X. We cannot run a republic like this. I'll never be the same after learning what I've learned. What did you learn, Dan? A rough start for the DOJ. The prosecution got a sloppy start during Cole's initial court appearance in December 5th. Despite having placed so much importance on the years-long investigation, the Department of Justice did not have an indictment of Cole when he was arrested, only a criminal complaint. Looks like they were scrambling pretty fast to arrest this guy. They couldn't even get an indictment prepared beforehand. I wonder why they were trying to get on this so fast. A magistrate judge set December 15th for a detention hearing, but did not establish a date for the arraignment, where Cole would have an opportunity to enter pleas to the charges. The detention hearing was later moved to December 30th by a joint agreement. Cole's right to a speedy trial meant federal prosecutors had until December 19th to obtain a federal indictment or face an adversarial preliminary probable cause hearing, where the government would have had to present its evidence to the judge showing that Cole is likely guilty of the charges, and defense attorneys could question the case against their client. While Cole agreed to delay the detention hearing until December 30th, he refused to waive his right to a preliminary hearing within the 14-day window his speedy trial rights demand, his attorney said in court filings. Here's some pictures of Brian Cole. Does not look like, okay, anyway. The DOJ did a bit of an end run on December 29th by obtaining an indictment of Cole in the local DC Superior Court. It is not a standard practice for federal courts to accept indictments from the local or municipal level DC court. A test case on that question is currently before the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia Circuit, though a decision on that case is unlikely in time to affect Cole's case. While the DOJ finally went back to the district court to get federal grand jury indictment of Cole on January 6th, the statute of limitations on one of the charges had expired by a single day. Now, Cole's attorneys are arguing that the DOJ missed both the window for that charge and the deadline for a speedy trial. After a magistrate judge ruled that Cole must remain locked up until trial, defense lawyers filed an emergency motion for review of the decision with the U.S. District Judge Amir Ali, who was assigned to the pipe bomb case. Cole's emergency motion seeks release because the government failed to follow the law. And it does not get to detain Mr. Cole now because the magistrate judge failed to properly release him on December 30th. Attorney J. Alex Little wrote in a motion supporting his client's release. Rep. Thomas Massie, who worked tirelessly to solve the pipe bomber case, decried the DOJ's ongoing efforts to keep Cole in jail until trial. He says, no credible motive presents danger to no one, flimsy evidence, no priors, willing to wear a tracker under house arrest, family will vouch, and DOJ botched their legal work. Massie wrote on X the day before Cole's January 7th detention hearing, irreparable harm to him otherwise. Okay, so independent case discoveries. Blaze News outlined shocking case discoveries on October 9th in a future story on the work of an independent investigator who goes by the social media handle Artemis, and has asked not to be otherwise named publicly for security reasons. Artemis tracked the hoodie-wearing bomb suspect by scrubbing the feeds of dozens of U.S. Capitol Police CCTV security cameras. He discovered that the suspect visited 2 locations apart from where the bombs were found on January 6, 2021. At the first, the Congressional Black Caucus Institute, the suspect sat down cross-legged in front of a bush on the north side of the building. The suspect leaned into the bush and appeared to attempt to place something under the shrub around 7:47 p.m. After 77 seconds, the suspect got up, grabbed the suspect's backpack, and walked off towards the DNC a few hundred feet away. The bomber also visited, so it sounds like he was going to place the suspect, the suspect who planted the pipe bombs, sounds like they were going to plant the pipe bombs in one place outside the Congressional Black Caucus and decided not to for some reason and went to another location. The bomber also visited a C Street rooming house near the Capitol Hill Club at around 8:15 p.m. Security video shows the suspect visited the front garden of the congressional rooming house known as the C Street Center, 133 C Street Southeast. The suspect was standing behind some bushes when a Capitol Police squad car pulled over directly across the street at about 8:15 p.m. The suspect then walked south on Rumsey Court and, according to the FBI, placed a bomb along the rear wall of the Capitol Hill Club. The FBI has never publicly addressed the 2 Capitol Police squad cars parked across the street from the pipe bomber just as the suspect was moving into place to drop the second pipe bomb. It is not known whether the 2 patrol officers were ever identified or interviewed. That would be good information to have. Artemis said he presented the information about the possible other bomb drop locations to the FBI and the U.S. House Select Subcommittee on remaining questions surrounding J6, but the FBI has not publicly acknowledged the information or explained whether it's investigated the possibility that the bombs were originally intended to be placed and explode at other sites. Williams said the defense has an expert prepared to testify that the pipe bombs were not explosives and could not have detonated. Interesting. We have an expert that's well recognized, and we have an expert report. He said, now these devices are devices that are alleged to be explosives or this or that by the government. What's the key point that you need to focus on? They were not viable by their government's own data. So again, okay, before I continue, if for some reason, or if somehow they convinced a Capitol Police officer who later went to work for the CIA to go plant fake pipe bombs, because they're saying that these pipe bombs couldn't have gone off, that they weren't viable, the term they used that isn't a term ordinarily used for pipe bombs. If they're not viable pipe bombs and they're just meant to be like a hoax, look like pipe bombs, what would that be for? To cause a distraction, to draw away Capitol Police officers, FBI, ATF from the main event at January 6th. Okay, so like that would be the whole point behind this. That would be like the motive for a Capitol Police officer planting the fake pipe bombs. Okay. Either a device or a hoax is in this next part. The first responders to the discovery of the Capitol Hill Club RNC device had serious doubts that the contraption was a real bomb. This included the head of the RNC security and then Capitol Police Officer Michael Riley, who exchanged looks of disbelief but had no choice but to treat the device as real, Riley told Blaze News. The devices had 60-minute kitchen timers attached, but were ostensibly placed 17 hours before they were found. So you guys are following that, right? It had a 60-minute timer on it. So if you drop it off, it has to go off within 60 minutes. So what good is that going to do? You drop it off at 8:15 the night before, it goes off. There's nobody around. Like, what's the point of that? So 60-minute timers, neither of them went off. So what the hell? The devices had 60-minute kitchen timers, but were ostensibly placed 17 hours before they were found. Under questioning by Massie in June of 2023, former FBI Assistant Director Stephen M. D'Antonio said it was not technically possible for a device with a 60-minute timer to detonate 17 hours later. There you go. And that's just, I mean, any of you guys can wrap your brain around that. A pipe bomb is a very rudimentary device. So if you have a kitchen timer for it, set it to 60 minutes. When it counts all the way down to the end of it, the kitchen timer goes ding. It makes a noise, right? The way it makes that noise is it sends an electrical current to a bell. You cut those leads, you splice them in, you just run wires off of them, the 2 bare copper leads into, I mean, you could do it into a bucket of gas or a gas thing, and it'll send a spark in there. That's what the kitchen timer does. It's got a 9-volt battery in it, sends a little spark, starts a fire, explosion components, boom. That's, I mean, it's really simple. So you can only plant the pipe bomb an hour before you want it to go off, maximum. It was planted 17 hours before J6. So, okay. The House Subcommittee on Oversight also took issue with the FBI's description of the pipe bombs as viable. By the way, they didn't go look for a third pipe bomb. So this is also interesting. According to an FBI bomb technician who agreed to speak to the committee staff on the condition of anonymity for fear of reprisal, the FBI's use of the term viable is a deviation from the standard description used by bomb technicians. Read January 2025 Subcommittee on Oversight report. Traditionally, bomb technicians deliberately avoid using vague language. The report continued, choosing instead to refer to a bomb device as a device if it would function as designed or as a hoax So viable is just not a term they use. Okay. Did Cole set the bomb timer for 60 minutes? According to the FBI, Cole told agents he set the kitchen timer on the DNC bomb for 60 minutes before he placed the device near the park bench behind the building. However, the video released by the FBI doesn't show the suspect even attempting to set the timer before placing it under the bush. So to set the timer, you'd have to, you guys have used a kitchen timer, right? Just old school kitchen timer that Nana used to have in her kitchen. You spin the damn thing to 60 minutes and then you let go. You would see that in the video. All they did is place the bomb. They didn't spin anything. So it doesn't look like they actually turned the device on. This device requires 2 full turns of the dial to set it, Artemis wrote. Not to mention, you have to unclip and reclip the alligator clips. Otherwise, turning the dial will close the switch across those clips, shorting the detonator. Kaboom. As we can see, oh, that's right. That's right. So you'd have to, I don't want to get too technical, but you'd have to like disconnect one of the wires before you turn to the timer, or else when you start to turn it, it's going to send that spark ding and bomb goes off in your hands. So anyway, he didn't do either of those steps. Counter surveillance behavior. Okay. Get to the beginning here. One of the two-man Capitol Police counter surveillance teams dispatched after discovery of the Capitol Hill Club bomb on January 6 exhibited odd behavior in their search for other devices. The counter surveillance agents chose to walk all the way from the Capitol South Metro station near the RNC despite the urgency of the search. Capitol Police CCTV footage did not show them conducting any searches along the way. They walked along the South Capitol Street Southeast, not stopping at the park bench where the FBI has since insisted the device sat for 17 hours, and proceeded to the north side of the Congressional Black Caucus Institute building a few hundred feet from the DNC. So are you guys catching that? Do you remember how the pipe bomb suspect originally went to the Congressional Black Caucus building, sat there for a bit, looked around, got up and went to the other location to plant the pipe bomb? Well, the counter surveillance agents walked right past where the pipe bomb was found and went to the Congressional Black Caucus Institute, suggesting that maybe they were expecting to find the pipe bomb there. Like that was the original location chose to place the pipe bomb, but then the person that planted it changed their mind. How would the counter surveillance agents know that? Why did they walk right past where the bomb was actually found? Incredible. Okay. That's insane. Okay. The agents walked up a sidewalk to the front of the CBCI building before returning. One of the agents stopped, leaned down, and looked under the bush beside the sidewalk. It was the same bush where security video shows the alleged bomber stood and sat for 77 seconds the night before, appearing to attempt a placement of something under the bush. What did the agents see? Was it the same thing noticed by the construction worker who peered under the bush at 1 p.m. just a few minutes before? The CBCI shrub and the bomber's visit were unknown to police at midday on January 6th, and the counter surveillance agents had not yet discovered the DNC device. Why did the bush draw their attention? How could they have known the shrub could have been an important part of the forthcoming investigation? Are you guys getting this? The person that planted the pipe bombs originally went to the Congressional Black Caucus building, sat there for 77 seconds, and looked under the bush and decided not to place the pipe bomb there for whatever reason. The next day, when the counter surveillance guys start looking for the pipe bomb, they walk straight to that building where the pipe bomb suspect sat down and decided not to place the bomb, and they looked under the same shrub that the person who was about to plant it decided not to plant it there. How did they know to look there? This is insane. Freaking insane. And anybody looking at this should be like, yeah, this suggests an inside job. Like, okay. 51 of them were identified as not needing further action because the phones belonged to law enforcement officers or persons on the exclusion list. Oh, God. Okay. Was Shauni Kerkhoff one of them? The appearance of the bomb suspect at the CBCI bush was not even mentioned in the October 22 update from the FBI. The animated map shows the FBI video does not show the bomber walking down the sidewalk north of the CBCI building and spending 77 seconds standing and sitting in front of the shrub. Once the counter surveillance agents found a device in the bushes at the DNC, it appears that they stopped searching for other bombs, even though the risk should have been heightened by discovery of a second bomb within just 25 minutes of the first. They later could not account for this when questioned by Rep Massie. So it's like you find one bomb, okay, then you find a second bomb. It's like, okay, we got to get all hands on deck. There might be bombs all over the freaking place. They might have planted pipe bombs everywhere. There could be 10, 20 of these things for all we know. There should have been bomb sniffing dogs freaking everywhere. This whole place should have been freaking locked down, but nothing. They stopped looking entirely. What is that about? They just stopped. Oh, second pipe bomb's found. This whole thing is insane. How did they know exactly where to look, including the place, Congressional Black Caucus Institute, where the pipe bomber tried to place a bomb? Massie asked. It was police. It was Capitol Hill police that found these bombs, and they got there. But I hope they went and bought a lottery ticket after finding these, after going to these two locations. Are you guys wrapping your brain around this? How did they know to go to those two locations that the person sat at and decided not to place the pipe bombs? How did they know to go there? According to Artemis, the hoodie-wearing bomb suspect placed the DNC pipe bombs under the bench with the kitchen timer facing outward toward the sidewalk. But then the bomb was discovered by Capitol Police counter-surveillance agents at 1:05 p.m. January 6th. The device's orientation was 180 degrees different, with their timer facing under the bush and the long end of the pipe facing toward the sidewalk. That could indicate that the bomb was removed after being placed on January 5th and replaced shortly before its discovery on January 6th. What the shit? Corrupted cellular data. So this article is insane. You guys follow Steve Baker because this shit is insane. In testimony before the White House, in testimony before the House Committee on the Judiciary 2023, the former head of the FBI's Washington field office said some of the data turned over by cell carriers was corrupted, and that the corrupted data may have contained the identity of the suspect, according to a January 2025 U.S. House report. We have complete data. Former FBI Assistant Director D'Antuono, I think that's how you pronounce it, D'Antuono, told a Judiciary Committee in June of 2023 before correcting himself, not complete because there's some data that was corrupted by the providers, not purposely by them, right? It just unusual circumstances that we have corrupt data from the providers. In later correspondence with the Judiciary Committee, representatives for AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile said they did not supply corrupted data, and the FBI never notified them with concerns about the integrity of the information supplied. So FBI is like, oh yeah, they gave us corrupted data, but they just never went back to them and like, hey, you guys gave us corrupted data. Do you have any other data you can give us that's not corrupted? The service providers weren't even notified. The subcommittee on the oversight said in its January 2025 report that the FBI has refused to comply with multiple requests from the subcommittee regarding this claim. Of the 186 phone numbers of interest identified by the FBI, 51 of them were identified as not needing further action because the phones belong to law enforcement officers or persons on the exclusion list. According to the January 2025 House report, the names associated with those 51's protected numbers have not been made public. So the obvious question here is, was Shauni Kerkhoff's phone one of these? Because if Shauni Kerkhoff's phone is at that location, that's now 3 pieces of evidence implicating her. The Gait analysis, the fact that she failed the polygraph, the fact that her phone was there that night. That's more evidence than what they're charged that they have to charge Brian Cole Jr. Much stronger evidence, by the way. This story is insane. Case agents developed 8 potential targets from subpoenas issued to 10 ad tech companies, which use anonymized trackers to help target advertising to customer prospects. The information collected by ad techs includes the website a user visited, their internet activity, and a user's location. A 2025 House report stated, well, that's concerning for knowing what they have access to. Unlike the vague location information from cell phone tower pings, ad tech uses GPS technology to pinpoint a user's exact location in order to tailor advertising based on the user's location. Anyone with online purchasing apps, maps, or applications like DoorDash or Uber Eats can be tracked using ad ID technology. Remember I said homie worked for Uber Eats? Wouldn't that be funny if they ordered food to that location just to set this fool up? Just throwing that out there. The user associated with this ad tech ID was a significant lead. That would actually be interesting. If he was delivering Uber Eats, I mean, his Brian Cole Jr.'s defense should get that. If he was in fact delivering Uber Eats that night, whoever ordered Uber Eats to that location that brought him close to where the pipe bombs were placed, whoever ordered that food should be investigated. Because, okay, anyway, that's just my tinfoil brain going crazy right there. According to AdTech, the company's software tools allow advertisers to reach qualified customer prospects, control how and where advertisements are shown, and optimize advertising spending in real time. The FBI Counterterrorism Advanced Projects Units initially identified 3 potential ad ID targets, but none of those targets were particularly high confidence candidates. The 2025 House report stated by March 2021, the FBI identified 1 ad ID whose movements matched the suspect's movements as outlined by the FBI release tracking the suspect's whereabouts. The pipe bomb case team requested the FBI's Special Operations Group conduct surveillance on the person of interest tied to the ad ID. The House reports called this a significant lead. It ultimately remains unclear what happened to this lead. However, all the location of the resources for surveillance purposes suggests the user associated with the ad tech ID was a significant lead, the report said. Okay, so that's it. That's the article from Steve Baker there. Like, I'm sorry, but all of the I got to know, was Shauni Kerkhoff's number one of those phone numbers that they determined was there? But it couldn't have possibly. That's not a person of interest because they're a Capitol police officer. Why would we investigate that person? They obviously wouldn't plant the fake pipe bombs. Oh man. So yeah, you know what? I mean, I think you guys get the gist of it. I have a bunch of other stuff pulled up here, but I don't even think we need to go into it. There's obviously going to be follow-up on this. Actually, okay. Yeah, no, I don't need to follow up on this, but yeah, no, you know what? There's another Blaze article that I want to read that's more about Brian Cole Jr.'s movements. All right. You guys want to go into this? So this next article is about like Brian Cole's actual movements and the cell phone data. And I kind of want to get into this. Oh, it's going to take a while. I'm already at 1:47. I was trying not to go over 2 hours for this video, but looks like I'm going to. So, all right, let's do it. Screw it. Let's get into this one. So this is also from Steve Baker. Pipe bomb suspect Brian Cole's movements on January 5th, 2021 are not as clear as charges make it appear. DOJ claims overwhelming evidence of Cole's guilt, but questions remain about Cole's location, his shoe size, gait, eyesight, and details of his alleged confession. Stand by really quick. I gotta clear my throat. All right, let's continue. No way the kid doesn't walk like that. Experts say cell tower pings analysis is an imprecise method when trying to define a phone's geographic location. Okay, so right off the bat, remember the article I just read shows that like certain apps on your phone use your exact GPS location to determine where you are within feet. You know, you guys use any app that has GPS location, just Apple Maps, you know, it tells exactly where you are. I'm a trail runner. All Trails, you guys ever use All Trails or Strava? Track where you are on a run, you can see exactly where you are on a trail. Anyway, that's not what they used. They didn't use the GPS data within the the apps on his phone, they use cell phone ping data. So when you're driving and cell phone ping data works a lot like wireless access points work. So you have cell phone towers, every, I don't know, let's say 10 miles or whatever. Your phone's going to hold on to one tower until you get close to another tower. And then your phone's going to disconnect from one tower and connect to the next tower. That only gives you an approximate area that you could be within. You use like a circle around that cell phone tower, and that's like your search perimeter, much like a wireless access point. Like, you guys ever been into a commercial building and you jump on that company's Wi-Fi, like a tech company or whatever? As you walk through the building, you never lose Wi-Fi, right? Well, you don't just have one router, you have wireless access points scattered throughout the building. Those wireless access points do the same thing. They see your phone. Oh, you've traveled closer to this wireless access point. Connect to that one now. Cell phone towers work in a similar way. Sorry, I didn't need to use that explanation. Okay, so experts say cell tower ping analysis is an imprecise method when trying to define a phone's geographic location. The FBI Cellular Analysis Survey Team Field Guide says a phone ping only indicates the device is somewhere within one of these three 120-degree sectors that radiate from the tower, which can reach a large area depending on how far away the next closest tower is. So it could be a huge search radius. What's coming Tuesday? Cole was charged in a criminal complaint with planting pipe bombs on the Democratic National Committee building and behind the Capitol Hill Club near the Republican National Committee building between 7:54 and 8:16 p.m. on January 5th. The DOJ has charged the crimes as an act of terrorism. So I just can't get away from the cell phone thing. Like, the evidence they have against Brian Cole isn't his exact location. It's just that he was within the cell phone tower that serves that Capitol Hill area. He was just within that area. It wasn't his exact GPS location. Now I want to know Shauni Kerkhoff's phone. Like, you've got it. Like, why aren't they using the apps on Brian Cole Jr.'s phone that show his exact GPS data? Like, you could easily get a search warrant for that. Like, any app that he has on his phone that uses his GPS location can tell you exactly where he was at that time period. Same thing with Shauni Kerkhoff. Where's that data from her phone? Do we know? Okay. Cole will be in federal court in Washington, D.C. Tuesday afternoon for a detention hearing and a preliminary hearing. There, the government is expected to present enough of its case to establish probable cause that Cole committed the crimes with which he is charged. Cole's defense team filed a motion to ensure the preliminary hearing takes place Tuesday, in addition to a hearing on whether Cole will remain jailed until trial. So we already know that. Let's skip that. Go to location. The first ping the FBI describes in its evidence against Cole happened at 7:39 p.m. when his phone interacted with tower 59323, located atop an apartment building at 103 G Street Southwest in Washington, D.C. The sector associated with the tower 59323 faces southeast with an azimuth of approximately 120 degrees. Sector depictions represent a general antenna orientation and do not define precise or exclusive coverage boundaries, said the retired FBI supervisor special agent who has worked with the FBI Cellular Analysis Survey Team. He reviewed the ping evidence in the case for the Blaze News. The FBI said Cole's phone also pinged tower 126187, which faces east from the location at 200 Independence Avenue Southwest. The idealized sector depicts for the two towers overlap in a limited area on the map, the retired agent says. However, without radio frequency calibration or carrier engineered data, the actual extent and shape of any overlap cannot be reliably determined. So it sounds like he was in the approximate area, could have been within miles of this. This is not hard evidence. The experts said that while evidence suggests Cole's phone was south of the hoodie suspect's location at 7:39 p.m., it can't be proven from the data. No reliable nexus can be established between the cellular records and that individual. The government's interpretation of the sector suggests that the handset may have been located south of the individuals observed on video. However, Sector-based cell site location information does not provide sufficient precision to determination the handset's exact location or its position relative to the hoodie wearing suspect, he said. Without RF calibration, distance metrics, or carrier engineered data, such directional interpretations remain general and non-exclusive. At the exact time the FBI claims Cole's phone pinged the southeast facing tower sector, the hoodie bomb suspect walked along D Street southeast, about to turn south onto Capitol Street southeast towards DNC, according to the video from the U.S. Capitol Police security camera 753. The hoodie suspect did not appear to be holding or otherwise using a cell phone at the time. The retired supervisory special agent said the security video provides no evidence supporting Cole's phone being at the same location as the hoodie suspect. Geometric comparison between tower locations, sector orientations, and the video confirmed sidewalk location demonstrates that the location of the hoodie wearing individual is not a clean main lobe match for the southeast facing sector of cell site 59323. The ping was a low specificity general location inference. So again, just in the general location, the surveillance video provides a high specificity location constraint for the unidentified hoodie wearing individual at specific times, he said in the analysis commissioned by the Blaze News. However, the video does not identify the individual and does not show the individual using, possessing, or interacting with a cellular device, he said. There's no visual evidence linking the individual on video to the handset reflected in the cell site location information records. If confirmed, that would put Cole's vehicle more than 1 mile away from the hoodie suspect. Okay, so a ping, shorthand for a cellular device's interaction with the tower. So that's a ping. So cellular device, tower sees it, that's a ping. All right, in proximity of that tower. Documents and the activity of the device, not the actions or identity of a person, he said. Absent evidence demonstrating device possession or by the individual observed on the video, no reliable nexus can be established between the cellular records that individual, he said. Further, Cole's blue 2017 Nissan Sentra does not appear on any Capitol Police security cameras in the area of the DNC or RNC, according to video investigator Artemis, who scrubbed the video feeds for feeds of dozens of U.S. Capitol Police cameras. Artemis found only 2 Nissan Sentras on the road in Capitol Hill, one of which was driven by a white individual with a white passenger. Cole is black. The other Sentra appeared to be a visual match for Cole's vehicle, Artemis said, but the driver's characteristics and identity cannot be determined from the video. In a memo filed with the U.S. District Court in Washington, D.C., seeking to keep Cole in jail for pending trial, the DOJ said that Cole told the FBI he parked his car on D Street Southeast at Folger Park and walked from there to the DNC. Folger Park is just beyond the network of more than 1,800 Capitol Police surveillance cameras. The court filings in the Cole case do not indicate if Cole was somehow aware of the boundaries of the surveillance cameras when selecting the parking area. The FBI said Cole's vehicle was captured on a license plate reader taking the Capitol Street exit from Interstate 395 south at 7:10 p.m. The hoodie suspect was first captured on Capitol Police video at 7:34 p.m. The FBI said. Capitol Police camera 5050 showed the bomb suspect crossing E Street southeast on New Jersey Avenue at 7:35 p.m. Okay. The DNC bench, but no ping. Another potential phone conflict happened at 7:44 p.m. when the FBI said Cole's phone pinged off the eastern sector of Tower 126187. Video shows the hoodie suspect was sitting on a DNC bench at 7:43 using a cell phone. That phone did not appear to have produced a manual ping between 7:43 and 36 seconds p.m. and 7:44 and 19 seconds p.m. At least no such ping is referred to by the FBI in the public cold case documents. It seems unlikely that the hoodie suspect was on Ivy Street at 7:44, as the FBI asserts. The bomb suspect had to walk from the DNC bench a short distance on Capitol Hill Street to Canal Street, then use canal to cross Ivy Street before proceeding up Ivy Street. Could that distance be covered in just 6 seconds? It seems doubtful, even if the suspect was running. The hoodie suspect no longer appeared to be using a phone when the person disappeared from DNC camera view at 7:44. Third potential contradiction. A third potential contradiction in the cell tower evidence came at 7:59 p.m. when the hoodie wearing suspect was, according to the FBI, on New Jersey Avenue Southeast, about to turn east onto East Street Southeast and continue on to North Carolina Avenue Southeast. Capitol Police Camera 0703 at the entrance to the Capitol Power Plant captured a glimpse of the bomb suspect turning from New Jersey Avenue to East Street. The FBI said that at 7:59 p.m., Cole's cell phone pinged in a sector of Tower 147990 that faces south approximately 180 degrees from its location at 200 Independence Avenue Southwest. The FBI links this ping to the hoodie suspect's appearance at New Jersey Avenue and East Street. At roughly 8 p.m., the hoodie suspect was believed to be walking northeast towards Folger Park. There is an 8-minute gap during which the bomb suspect is not visible on any security cameras. The FBI has theorized since early in the case that the suspect used Folger Park as a base of operations. Since the FBI said the bomber only carried one pipe bomb at the time in the backpack, the suspect would have had to acquire the second bomb before reappearing on camera, walking toward the Capitol Hill Club and Republican National Committee building. So he wouldn't have both of them with him. He had to go pick it up from somewhere. The hoodie wearing suspect's likely resupply mission presents a possible problem for the FBI's timeline. At 8:03 p.m., the security camera captured what Artemis believed to be Cole's blue Nissan Sentra traveling north on 3rd Street Southwest towards C Street Southwest, according to several U.S. Capitol Police cameras along the route. If confirmed, that would put Cole's vehicle more than 1 mile away from the hoodie suspect at 8:03 p.m., since it is a 6 to 7 minute drive to Folger Park from 3rd Street Southwest. Cole could not be in the same location as the hoodie suspect at that time, according to the Capitol Police cameras. The Nissan Sentra tracked by Artemis traveled north on 3rd Street Southwest to C Street Southwest, then turned east. That Nissan Sentra was last seen at 8:04 p.m. on Capitol Police camera 8483 on C Street at 2nd Street Southwest in front of the O'Neill House office building. The Sentra drove onto an entrance ramp at I-395 traveling west away from Folger Park, the Capitol Hill Club, and the Republican National Committee building. Cole could not have been hiding in or near Folger Park from roughly 8:02 to 8:08 p.m. and also been driving away from the Capitol Hill more than a mile away at the same time. Okay, so all of this data would be unneeded if they had the data from the actual apps on Cole's phone. So why are they using cell phone ping data and not the apps is my question. Like they could easily get a search warrant for that. And my conspiracy brain is also saying, like, did someone order Uber Eats to get, like, was this guy a patsy the whole freaking time? Did they know they were going to set him up the whole time? And then just decide that, like, no, we're just going to slow play this investigation and it'll eventually just go away. But Thomas Massie wouldn't shut up about it. So they had, and then Steve Baker comes out with this article saying, we think this Capitol Hill police officer freaking planted these pipe bombs. So they're like, we need the patsy after all. So my question is, did they, like, way back on January 5th, 2021, did someone order Uber Eats just to put this freaking autistic kid in the proximity of where the pipe bombs were planted so they have a potential patsy? So it's just a question. Confession claim. The DOJ detention memo said Cole confessed to placing the bombs and his intention was that they would detonate at night on January 5th and not the next day on January 6th. The DOJ said Cole set the timer on the first device to the maximum duration of 60 minutes and planted the device. Artemis said the surveillance video released by the FBI from a DNC security camera shows that the bomber took the device out of the backpack and immediately placed it under the bush near the base of the park bench. Video from two different angles shows that the timer was never set, Artemis wrote on X Monday. This device requires 2 full turns of the dial to set it, Artemis wrote. Not to mention, you have to unclip and reclip the alligator clips. Otherwise, turning the dial would close the switch. Okay, I read that in the last article. Shoes and gait. So the gait of Brian Cole, they're like Steve Baker's saying like that's his alibi. Just the way Brian Cole walks, his body is his alibi because he walks nothing like the suspect that planted the person on the video that planted the actual pipe bombs. So Cole's demeanor, mannerisms, and walk look distinctly different from the bomb suspect wearing the hoodie on the FBI video. According to Prince William County Police body cam video from the scene of a minor traffic accident involving Cole in late April 2024, Cole has more of a lumbering walk with his feet facing outward with no cadence to his steps. Blaze News obtained a 48-minute video through a Freedom of Information request. Man, this is good work. Cole noticeably leans his head and neck to the left, while the hoodie suspect stood upright with a straight back and squared shoulders. Can I play this video? Oh, it's just a screenshot. Okay, wait, can I? Oh, I can. All right. Here's Cole walking. Let's watch this. Let me go full screen here for you guys. Okay, so here's Cole walking. This is Brian Cole, the suspect. Oh, yeah, his legs are like super far apart. Like he walks kind of like bow-legged almost. Yeah, just watching him take a few steps, it looks nothing like the person that planted the pipe bombs. Look how he's walking. That's him right there. It was so, yeah, when they say his body, his gait, the way he walks is his alibi, I mean, that really is solid evidence. Like, look how the guy walks. It's nothing like the pipe bomber suspect. See how close the guy, the person that planted the pipe bomb, you like their ankles, their inner ankles are super close together. You look at, and like, yeah, how his feet face kind of outward. Oh man, that is wild. Okay. I apologize for my noises. Cole noticeably leans his head and neck to the left, while the hoodie suspect stood upright with a straight back and squared shoulders. As the hoodie suspect walked south down Rumsey Court to place the second pipe bomb at 8:16 p.m. on January 5th. Video showed a confident stride with a fast cadence. On the body cam video, Cole looked unsure of himself, withdrawn, avoiding eye contact, and appearing to lack the confidence displayed by the original bomb suspect. Cole told Prince William County officer he had a lapse in focus and led him to run into the pickup truck in front of him. Oh, okay, so he was in a traffic accident. All right, I'm going to go back to this other screen. Okay. It's not a criminal offense. The officer reassured Cole it's just a traffic offense. So you go to court, you can fight it if you want to, or you can prepay it. The owner of a 7-Eleven on Minnieville Road in Woodbridge, not far from the Cole family home, said Brian Cole Jr. has come into his store for years, always purchasing the same thing, pizza and 2 Cokes. I saw him for 13 years minimum of 2 of 3 times per week, said Sonny Sandhu. He was probably here every day. Every time he came in here, it was always the same thing, same routine, Sandhu told the Blaze News in an interview. Always had his headphones on, always made it the same order, bought 2 Cokes and a pizza. Sandhu said if he didn't have a fresh pizza on display, he would offer to make one for Cole, but in those cases, Cole always opted instead for chicken wings. He said Cole usually didn't say anything, but occasionally would nod when Sandhu thanked him and said goodbye. After Cole's arrest, Sandhu said he watched the FBI video of the hoodie suspect walking down an alley to place the second pipe bomb near the RNC. I go, no way. The kid doesn't walk like that, Sandhu said. The kid has no confidence in his stride at all. Cole has a goofy walk that does not resemble the FBI's bomb suspect, Sandhu said. There's no way, he said. The 7-Eleven owner said the FBI didn't come to his store asking about Cole before or since December 4th arrest. An FBI whistleblower who has worked in the Washington field office filed a protected disclosure with the U.S. House on December 11th, asserting that Cole was simply mentally incapable of carrying out the placement of the pipe bombs while evading a massive law enforcement dragnet for nearly 5 years. The disclosure was filled up with U.S. Reps Thomas Massie and Jim Jordan. Attorney Kurt Suzdak said his whistleblower client lives in the vicinity of the Cole home in Virginia and has observed Brian Cole hundreds of times, if not more, over the course of nearly a decade. He said his client described Cole as detached and vacant and displayed awkward behavior. It is obvious that he has a mental disability and likely lives in a permanent, vulnerable intellectual and emotional state. Just like when you think of patsies for intelligence agencies, this is like the perfect description of who they target. You know, people that are slightly autistic, not confident, don't have a lot of friends. Like, this is the exact description of who they target. It is obvious he has a mental disability and likely lives in an apartment of vulnerable. Okay, I read that. The FBI should have used caution and its behavior experts to ensure any interrogation was proper. Right? Like, again, his attorney wasn't there for his alleged confession. Rep. Thomas Massie outlined a litany of problems he has with the state of the pipe bomb case, including the fact that Cole is borderline autistic, as disclosed by Cole's grandmother, Loretta Cole. They said, look, our son or our grandson, he's autistic and he's operating at a 16-year-old level and he's not capable of this. Massie said on December 11th that that was their claim. And I do think that that's relevant to know his mental acuity. Different eyesight. The way Cole held his cell phone at the accident scene is very different from how the hoodie suspect held and used a cell phone on January 5th. Cole kept the phone less than a foot from his face while reading the screen, video showed. The hoodie suspect, in contrast, held the cell phone in his lap while sitting on the park bench behind the DNC. This could indicate that Cole's eyesight is significantly different from the eyesight of the hoodie suspect. The Converse Chuck Taylor All-Star Canvas sneakers Cole wore at the 2024 accident scene also appeared to be larger than the Nike shoes worn by the pipe bomb suspect on January 5th. The FBI said Cole told agents he used to have a pair of Nike Air Max shoes, but threw them away because they were in poor condition. Okay. Ignored evidence. It is In its narrative accusing Cole of being the pipe bomber, the FBI apparently did not ask Cole about stopping at a bush alongside the Congressional Black Caucus Institute at 7:48 p.m. A video discovery made by Artemis and published by Blaze News on October 29th. Security video shows the hoodie suspect walk from the New Jersey Avenue down a sidewalk next to the CBCI building, 413 New Jersey Avenue Southeast. The suspect spent 1 minute, 17 seconds near the bush. First bent over, then sitting down from the shrub. Capitol Police security video shows the suspect rummaged through a backpack while sitting cross-legged and then leaned into the bush and appeared to place or attempt to place something underneath. The suspect stood up after 77 seconds and walked to the DNC building. There, the suspect sat on a park bench and at 7:54 p.m. placed a pipe bomb underneath an adjacent bush. Video released by the FBI showed. So again, they went to one location and decided not to place the pipe bomb there, went to the other location, and then the officers the next day went to the first location. Like, this whole thing's insane. How did they know to go to that first location next to the Congressional Black Caucus? That makes no sense. The DOJ memo does not mention the CBCI or indicate whether Cole explained why he stopped at the bush near the headquarters of the Congressional Black Caucus Institute. Information on the bomber's time near the CBCI and the video showing the suspect's actions was shared by the FBI with the FBI by Artemis earlier this year. It also does not mention that the bomb suspect stopped in a garden in front of the C Street Center at 133 C Street Southeast. The building has long served as a dormitory or a room housing 4 members of Congress and staff. Artemis said he believes the suspect attempted to place the second pipe bomb in the bushes in front of 133 C Street, but may have been interrupted by a Capitol Police squad car that turned onto C Street from the east with its emergency lights on. All right, you guys. Like, I know I just went over probably way more things than I had to. And I know that there's like so many little details in this case that makes it like it's easy to tune out when you hear this stuff. And a lot of people are just over the January 6th stuff. You know, it was 5 years ago now. Like why does anybody care? Well, the reason we should care is because this, like, the whole thing, we already think that J6 was an inside job. Putting the pipe bomb stuff aside, that the whole thing was a setup. And it pretty much already looks like the whole thing was a setup. Wouldn't you want to know that if pipe bombs or fake pipe bombs were placed at the Capitol, if they were like, if it's proven that it was a Capitol police officer that now works for the CIA that planted these pipe bombs, and they're actually trying to blame this autistic kid for it, put him away for life, like, this is a huge scandal, a giant scandal, and barely anybody seems to be talking about it. And it also suggests that the deep state is still at it. It doesn't matter that, you know, the Kash Patel, Dan Bongino FBI is in there now. They're still protecting the same people. And like that's a huge part of this too. Like, the whole January 6th thing was against Trump. Now Trump's back in power. He put Kash Patel in charge of the FBI, and they're trying to blame this autistic kid for the January 6th stuff. Like, who are they protecting? I thought they were going after the deep state. Now it seems like they're protecting the same people that were running this whole thing against Trump. Like, what the hell is going on? And it's like the same thing with the Epstein files. Like, none of this stuff makes any sense unless there's a bunch of shady shit going on in the background that we're not aware of. And they're protecting people for whatever reason. And you know, people within this administration are compromised, and maybe even Trump's compromised. Like, what the hell is going on? Really, what the hell is going on? So that's all I got, you guys. Thanks for watching. This was a long one. If you made it this far, please like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. I will be live tomorrow night. Actually, I'll be live before this video goes out. So Sunday nights, 6 o'clock, Sunday night Pacific. Every Sunday night Pacific. Tune in for my live stream, and we'll get into a bunch of other shenanigans. So thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.